Welcome friends, in this video let's discuss about coral reefs. And these coral reefs are important underwater ecosystem. They support thousands of aquatic organisms. These are also called as tropical rainforests of the oceans because of their higher productivity and biodiversity. So let's look at coral reefs. First, the definition. Coral reefs are diverse underwater ecosystem held together by calcium carbonate structures secreted by a tiny animals called corals. So these coral reefs are built by colonies of small animals found in marine water, and most of the coral reefs are built from stony corals, which in turn consists of polyps. These are the animals. Okay, they live in the groups. Okay, clusters, and these coral polyps, that is tiny animals, secretes hard calcium carbonate exoskeleton. So these are soft bodied animals, so in order to protect themselves they secrete calcium carbonate exoskeleton, thereby they get support and protection from the harsh climatic conditions. So they produce exoskeleton in the form of calcium carbonate. And these coral polyps, that is the tiny animals, live in symbiotic relationship with the zooxanthellae. These are microscopic algae. On the one side, these coral polyps are animals, okay, small animals, and zooxanthellae, this is the small plant, that is the microscopic algae. So they have symbiotic relationship with each other. They support each other in their survival. On the one side, this zooxanthellae, that is the microscopic algae, has the capacity to produce their own food by mechanism of photosynthesis, okay, and they produce the carbohydrates and nutrients required for their survival. So in the meantime, this zooxanthellae provides carbohydrates and nutrients to the coral polyps because these are heterotrophs. Okay, they get food materials from the zooxanthellae. On the other side, this zooxanthellae, that is the animal source, provides habitat and place to grow for these photosynthetic zooxanthellae. So on the one side, this animal source provide habitat to the zooxanthellae. On the other side, this zooxanthellae provide food material for the survival of the coral polyps. So there is a symbiotic relationship between these two organisms. So these two organisms builds the coral reefs in symbiotic association with each other. And the color of the coral reefs are due to the zooxanthellae, that is the microscopic algae. They have pigments. So these pigments impart color to the coral reefs and not due to the coral polyps. Okay, and how these coral reefs are built. Okay, this we have the coral polyps and zooxanthellae. So how these together build the coral reefs? Okay, the builders of coral reefs are tiny animals called polyps that are discussed here, and these polyps thrive, grow, and die. Okay, after the death, they leave their limestone exoskeletons behind as it is. So one generation of coral polyps produce exoskeleton, that is calcium carbonate, and they die on that platform itself. On the top of it, the new generation of coral polyps thrive. Okay, they thrive, grow, and then they also secrete limestone exoskeleton for themselves as well. And in the same way, they also, after their death, they leave behind the limestone. So the cycle continues. On the top of it, the new generation of coral polyps will grow. In this way, layer upon layer, these coral polyps in association with the zooxanthellae will build their coral reefs. So this is the reason behind the growth of the coral reefs. Okay, and these reef building are hermotypic corals can form a wide range of shapes. Okay, they can take any shape that you imagine. The corals may be branched, table like, massive cup, or boulder or knob. Okay, and they may take even the shape of your brain. I will show that in the figure. So the brain coral, this is the shape of the brain, and the staghorn coral, this is the shape of the staghorn. Spiral wire coral, pillar coral, mushroom coral, maze coral, black coral, and there are different other shapes as well. Okay, so they take diverse shapes. And let's look at the important features of the coral reefs. Here, the first feature is that they occur in shallow tropical areas. So they occur only in the tropical areas where seawater is clean, clear, and warm. And these are very much important for the growth of the coral reefs. Seawater must be clean, clear, and warm, and it must be saline. So if any of these conditions are not met, the coral reef will face the extinction here. And one of the most productive and complex coastal ecosystem with high biological diversity. So they have higher biological diversity and they have complex coastal ecosystem mechanism. And these coral reefs are highly productive owing to the combination of its own primary production. That is, primary production is due to the zooxanthellae, which produce the photosynthesis, and support from its surrounding habitat. So they have higher productivity. And the reef building corals, they live in symbiotic association with coral polyps, that is the coral animals, and zooxanthellae, that is the microscopic algae that I discussed in my previous slide. And these two, coral polyps and zooxanthellae, grow in differential rate. So the coral polyps are slow growing animals and zooxanthellae are the fast growing plants. And these coral polyps live in nutrient poor water, not the nutrient rich. This is important. They live in nutrient poor water, but they have the capacity to recycle the scarce nutrients present in the water. So this capacity is huge for them. And these are also considered as tropical rainforests of the oceans because of their higher productivity and biodiversity. So in coral reef ecosystem, many invertebrates, vertebrates, plants, fishes, and a lot of other species live in close association to the corals and with tight resource coupling. So they exchange the resources between them for their own survival and recycle. They recycle the resources because they live in nutrient poor water. So these are considered as extremely highly productive and diverse ecosystem in the environment. So because of this, coral reefs provide also economic advantage to the nearby living population because they support huge thousands of fish populations. So the fisheries thrive very well wherever the coral reefs are present. So this is the range where the coral reefs are present. Only in the tropical areas of the world we see the coral reefs. So if we see this area here, this area is bathed by the cold water currents. So coral reefs requires warm water. So this Humboldt current and this I don't know what is this current, and these two are the this one cold water currents here. Thereby they do not have the conditions for the survival. So these coral reefs survive only in the warm, clean and clear water. So this is the thing here about this. And here these tube sponges attract cardinal fishes, grass fishes and wrasses. So I discussed earlier here about this. Coral reefs gives habitat to thousands of fish species. You can see a lot of thousands of fishes hovering around the coral reefs, and over 4,000 species of fish inhabit the coral reefs. This is the range of diversity the coral reefs that can support. And organisms can cover every square inch of a coral reefs. So they have higher productivity. So for every square meter of area of the coral reefs, you can find thousands and thousands of species of organisms. So thereby they are highly productive. So let's look at the classification based on their location. So coral reefs are classified based on their locations. So they are classified into fringing reef, patch reef, barrier reef and atoll. Okay, first let's look at the fringing reef. These fringing reef are contagious, that is attached with the shoreline, and they are most common by occurring reef form. So they live in attachment with the coastal line. Okay, and they are the most common, and these are most commonly found in Andaman Islands. Okay, this picture is from Israel. And the second thing is the patch reef. Patch reefs are isolated and discontinuous patches lying shorewards of offshore reef structures, and they are discontinuous patches. They live in the midst of the oceans. Okay, and these are called the patch reefs. They can be found in the Gulf of Mannar and Gulf of Kutch. And third is the barrier reef, and these are important group of reefs. And these barrier reefs are linear offshore reefs. So they are linear. Okay, offshore reefs. They are linear offshore reef structures that run parallel to the coastline. So they run parallel to the coastline, and the area between the coastline and this barrier reef is occupied by the water. This water body is called lagoon. Okay, lagoon. So between the coastal land and the coral reefs, there is a water body called lagoon. So this is the difference between the fringing reef and barrier reef. So this is the picture from the satellite picture from the great Australian barrier reef. So the atoll, these atolls has the circular shape. So they are the shape of the ring, and the middle of the coral reefs are occupied by the water. So these are the atolls. These are the four important types of coral reefs. And let's look at the important functions of the coral reefs. The coral reefs are natural protective barriers against erosion and storm surge. So these are acts as a buffer against the erosion. So we all know that the ocean carries out various erosional activities. So these coral reefs protects the inland from the erosion and storm surge. And coral animals are highly adapted for capturing plankton from the water, thereby capturing nutrients as well. And largest biogenic calcium carbonate producer. So these coral reefs are the largest biogenic, that is the produced by the biotic organisms. So calcium carbonate producer. And they produce substrate for the mangroves. They produce soil material, okay, substrate for the growth of the mangroves, for the support of the mangroves. And coral reefs provide habitat for a large variety of animals, plants, including avifauna. Avifauna is the bird species. So in India, we find coral reefs in Gulf of Kutch, here in the coast of Gujarat, that is, and in the Lakshadweep Island, Gulf of Mannar, and Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Only these four areas we find the coral reefs. And we also have the deep water corals, also known as cold water corals. So we learned earlier that coral reefs requires warm water, clean and clear water. But these deep water, also known as cold water corals, can thrive in very cold temperature. So they extend to deeper, darker parts of the oceans than the tropical corals, ranging from near the surface to the abyss, okay, that is the bottom of the sea, beyond 2000 meter depth, where water temperature may be as cold as 4 degrees Celsius. So these are different class of corals, okay. They do not require the zooxanthellae. These cold water corals do not require zooxanthellae to survive. So this is important here. Whereas the warm water coral reefs requires zooxanthellae in association for their survival. But these cold water coral reefs do not require this zooxanthellae, and these coral reefs, the cold water corals, are present in the Norway coast. Okay, so thanks for watching. In the next video, let's look at the threats that are faced by the coral reefs and about the coral bleaching. Thank you.